What's going on, YouTube? Hope everybody on Monday was productive and had a good day. Today, I'll be talking about the story of Anita Knutson. And Anita Knutson was a cold case due to after many years and years of her case going unsolved. She was unalive back in the year 2007. Her story has made national news, also had appeared on Dateline NBC, and also the TV show Cold Case. I believe that used to come on Oxygen. Um, Actually, they had a trial earlier this year where a defendant, a suspect, actually went to trial, and it appears that she won pretty much very on thin ice. She was voted. They voted not guilty, even though there was massive amounts of evidence that pointed to her being the killer. This is the story. This is the roommate murder mystery. I'm not sure if everyone has heard about it, but it takes place. I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory of who Anita Knutson was first. So Anita Knutson was 18 years old from Minot, North Dakota. She was born on September 22nd in 1988 in Orange County, California, and was adopted by Gordon and Sharon Knutson at 5 months of age. So she was taken in since she was a newborn. So that's pretty much, even though they were not her biological parents, I want to say that they were the closest to it because she was adopted at such a young age of only 5 months. So to her, in her eyes, those are her real parents. They resided in Anaheim, California, where she attended Glen Knoll Elementary School. And then she went on to Bernardo Yorbo Middle School, where she wrote and published a book. And she did all of this while only in the 8th grade. She did attend high school and at Esperanza High School. In June 2002, Anita moved with her family to Butte, North Dakota, where she attended Velva High School. So they were from California, but relocated to another state. She was active in all types of student organizations and things like that, and extracurricular activities such as sports, soccer. She played the violin and she played the piano. She was an honors student. She graduated with honors in 2006. After she graduated high school, she went on to go to Minot State University, where she majored in elementary education. She wanted to become a teacher to help kids. Also, in addition to going to college, she was working 2 jobs. She was employed as a housekeeper at a hotel, and she also worked in retail sales at the local mall in her city. She was also a member of St. Paul's Lutheran Church. So she was a church-going person, very religious, very loving with her family. Some of her hobbies included reading, writing. Those are 2 of my favorite things to do. And she also liked music. Anita was a vibrant, full of life type of person. She was just pretty much helpful to everybody. She helped everybody, was kind to everybody. She had a brother and a sister with the family of Gordon and Sharon Knutson, her adoptive parents. So that's just pretty much some of the backstory about her. Who painted. I pretty much want to, give you that context before I get into what happened to her. This takes place back in 2007. So I was in high school around that time, actually. And I kind of remembered hearing about this story. I watched it on Dateline, pretty much, and Cold Justice. So that's what got me to telling about this story, is because I remembered it from my childhood days, my teenage days, shall I say. So I'm going to share a video also about Anita Knutson. It's going to give you more context. I really think I'm on camera. Give me 1 second, guys. There we go. So I will be covering this trial, actually. The trial that the defendant had was a rewatch. It happened earlier this year. It ended in a not guilty verdict, which I feel was a grave injustice to her memory, and because of her family. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a story about her life, and then I'm also going to play the opening statements. The rest of the remainder of the week, I'll be covering the testimony from witnesses that testified in the trial. First up would be her parents, but that will be sometime tomorrow for you. Give me 1 second, because I thought I had it pulled up. What's crazy to me is that this trial was, I don't know how they could vote not guilty, because all evidence pointed to her, to the suspect, because it was her roommate. Now, before I even get into my commentary, I do let me pause that. Before I get into my commentary, I want to say copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, commentary, news reporting, scholarship, and research. People want to distract me when I'm about to do stuff. I hate when that shit happens. Give me 1 second. It's like y'all didn't bother me all damn day. Not all of a sudden I get ready to do my commentary. People want to fucking harass me.
And widely loved 18-year-old student sparked a mystery that would persist for 15 years. This is a case that has produced so many suspects, yet so little valuable evidence.
I'm gonna start from the beginning. Sorry.
In the spring of 2007 in Minot, North Dakota, the murder of a popular, kind-hearted, and widely loved 18-year-old student sparked a mystery that would persist for 15 years. This is a case that has produced so many suspects, yet so little valuable evidence. Anita Knutson seemingly had no enemies. Hi everyone, I'm Kevin and this is Just Thought Lounge. JTL is the true crime channel that delivers serious, well-balanced coverage of the cases that really make you think. You may have heard of the case that we're about to look at. It has been the topic of speculation, suspicions, and finger-pointing for over 15 years. After so much time has passed, it was a television show that would take another look at this puzzle and start putting the pieces together. Let's take a look.
Shout out to Just Thought Lounge, by the way. And the TV show he's referring to will be Cold Justice, because an actual reality TV show at that time actually came in to help pitch the Minot Police Department, because her murder was a cold case for so many years, I believe almost 18 years, almost 19 years, sorry. And they had suspects, but could not prove anything, because there were like 3 to 4 different suspects. So, you know, when that happens, pretty much a case will go cold. So they had to bring in outside help. But I'm going to continue with it.
In the small community of Butte, North Dakota, population roughly 70, the Knutson family raised 3 children, Daniel, Anita, and Anna. Butte lies on the northern edge of McLean County. It takes roughly an hour to drive to Minot, where Anita, at the age of 18, had just completed her freshman year at MSU, Minot State University. Anita was bright, hardworking, and extremely well-liked. She was majoring in elementary education in pursuit of a career as a kindergarten teacher. Family and friends of the 18-year-old agreed that this career path suited Anita perfectly. Just off campus was the apartment that she rented with a childhood friend. Anita was working 2 jobs to keep up with her studies and rent, one at a local hotel and the second in retail. Despite what was no doubt an extremely busy schedule, she maintained an active social life and had a large circle of friends. In June 2007, Anita was looking forward to the summer break. Anita stayed in close contact with her family in Butte, speaking with either of her parents and siblings most days. So it was a bit odd when her mother gave her a ring on the Saturday, June 3rd, and received no response. Anita was scheduled for work at the hotel that day. Perhaps she was simply busy working her shift. On Sunday, however, Anita could still not be reached, and as it turned out, she had not turned up to work her shift the day before. So Gordon Knutson, Anita's father, made the short drive out to Minot to check on her. The window to Anita's bedroom sat just to the left of the front entrance. It was visible as Gordon arrived at the building. When he approached, he could see that the window had been broken.
So I'm gonna pause it right here. So we know that she has a roommate, or had a roommate, who also was high school friends with Anita as well. They were best friends in high school, attended the same college, and decided to get a roommate with each other in an off-campus apartment. One day when they were when she was trying to be reached by her parents, she could not be. They haven't heard anything, so they decided to. The father decided to take a visit up there to see what was going on after not getting any type of response or anything from his daughter. I believe after the following day, so he didn't wait. They didn't wait that too much long of a time distance to go by to to reach her. Pretty much, they wanted to get in contact with her as soon as possible.
And he had a clear view inside. Approaching the window, Gordon viewed a figure hunched over on top of the bed, which sat just inside the windowsill. Although her face was not towards him, Gordon knew that figure on the bed was Anita. He was able to reach through the window and found his daughter was cold to the touch. Panicked, Gordon sought out the property management. The landlady, Laura.
So that's just sad to hear. So when he got there, he saw a body lying in the bedroom, face down. So he knew it was his daughter, and he actually touched her body, and it was cold. That just has to be. I just can't imagine him being a father, like finding his daughter in that way. That's man.
Knapp opened the door for Gordon to enter. Inside, he found Anita, but it was too late to save her. The police were called out to the building. Anita had been stabbed twice, once in the middle of the chest and once on her right side. There were no other signs of distress or indications of a struggle. The killer had acted quickly. Sources are unclear as to whether Anita had been wearing a robe or whether one had been draped over her after she collapsed forward on the bed. The latter would suggest that the murder was personal. The act of covering her up after the fact was perhaps to disassociate the killer from what they had done, or perhaps to provide her with greater dignity. At the end of the bed were relevant items. First, Anita's cell phone. Secondly, though crucially, a pocket knife with dried blood was located underneath a comforter on the bed, close to the wall and open window. Multiple items of value remained untouched, including cash in Anita's purse, her laptop, her cell phone, and digital camera. With the room otherwise undisturbed.
So with such personal items still left behind, like cash, phone, purse, and things like that, you can already rule out a robbery. And with this being an apartment, you have to ask yourself who had access to that apartment, who had a key. Now, keep in mind, remember, she does have a roommate. But you're going to hear towards later in the end, or towards the middle of this story, that though they started off as good friends and best friends in high school and sometimes in college, or some of it in college, they began to become estranged roommates. They had living difficulties, and this is what I want to also comment on. I'm not sure how being roommates with somebody can drive you to kill somebody, but if you're not getting along with a particular roommate, I mean, there was other things, there was other options she had as far as, you know, getting out of that situation. Regardless if you felt like you were bound in a lease or not, there's ways out of those type of situations, and it shouldn't have to result to a murder. Just to you know, get out of whatever situation that you were in and you hated that person.
Theft seemed an unlikely motive. Detectives at the scene determined that the open window could not have been the means of entry for the killer. This, despite that it had been left open and large enough for an adult to fit through. A maintenance worker for the complex, a man named Marty Annell, had discovered the screen for the window lying on the ground outside the evening before. The screen had clearly been cut, sliced in an L shape with a sharp blade, likely the pocket knife. The worker had collected the screen from the ground and had...
Now, Marty O'Neill was the maintenance guy that's for the apartment complex. He'd done some maintenance work to the bedroom window. He's also in a relationship with the actual property manager of the apartment complexes at the time, or was in a relationship. He was also considered to be a suspect. And the reason why he was considered to be a suspect is because I believe a year after Anita was murdered, he committed suicide himself. So they thought that that was a sign of guilt, the fact that he committed suicide a year after that she was unalive. And they have to keep him as they kept him as a suspect, or considered him a suspect, because of course he was the maintenance man. He had access to that apartment. By him being the maintenance person, he had keys to because the door was locked from the inside. So in order to come in, you would have had to have had a key to get in. It was kind of like a one way in, one way out type of thing with those type of apartments. I'm going to continue.
Had not thought any more about it. He intended to have it repaired or replaced. That is, until Gordon Knutson arrived the next day, concerned for his daughter and insistent that he get inside to see her. Marty then produced the broken screen. He later turned it over to law enforcement. Despite the state of the window screen, investigators were not convinced that they were looking at a break-in. Both the area beneath the window on the inside of the bedroom and the dust from the interior windowsill had not been disturbed. Furthermore, testing confirmed that there were traces of blood on the screen, a transfer from the bloody knife found on the bed. It had been cut after the murder, not prior. The murderer had not used the window to enter. This was staged. They must have used the door. When Gordon was granted...
So they're saying basically whoever committed the crime, they pretty much staged it to look like it was somebody broke into the window, but that was not the case. Somebody actually had the key. That was to throw the police off. Yeah, I'm going to continue. Sorry.
Access by Laura Knapp, the front door had been locked. The lock was the kind that required a key to both unlock and to lock the door. There were 4 individuals that were known to have keys to the apartment. One key was Anita's. Another was for her roommate, Nicole, who was out of town that weekend. Laura, the landlady, obviously held one. And the 4th key was in possession of the maintenance worker, Marty. Investigators had already found it suspicious that Marty had the screen in his possession and had somehow retrieved it in the manner that he...
So only 4 people had access to that apartment. 2 of them is business related. The leasing manager, of course, is going to have a copy. The maintenance man, of course, is going to have a copy. The victim, Anita, is going to have a copy herself because she lives there. She's a resident. And another resident, Nicole, who claims that she was out of town when the incident happened. But you're later going to find out that that may not altogether be true.
Stated, yet claimed that he did not see Anita on the bed just inside the window when he collected the screen from the ground outside. As Gordon had attested, when he approached the building, Anita was in clear view to him from the exterior of the building. Initial DNA testing on items, including the pocket knife, and other evidence throughout the room returned nothing of value. The path to the killer had to be found another way. Investigators set out examining the personal life of Anita Knutson. It was determined that Anita had likely been killed early Sunday morning, more than a day before her body was found. Cell phone records and a forensic analysis of Anita's phone indicated that she was texting a friend in the early morning hours the day before she was discovered, Sunday, June 3rd. At 4:43 a.m., this friend and potential love interest, Michael Money Van, sent a text message to Anita stating, "I thought you were going to reply to the last text." The exchange had been personal in nature, but not at all flirtatious. 5 minutes later, Anita did respond, "I didn't know what to say." The last text received to Anita's phone followed at 4:53 a.m., and it said, "You don't need to say anything." That message was never registered as read on Anita's device. Her last known communication was the previous message to Michael at 4:48 a.m. Michael was known to want more than a friendly texting relationship with Anita, but according to friends, the two had never moved beyond this stage. Michael, however, was not the only man in Anita's life who held out hope for a romantic relationship. Back in Butte, Tyler Schmaltz had been an awkward teenager with few friends. By his own admission, Anita had been one of the few students that had been kind to him, his only real friend. Tyler and Anita attended their high school prom together, but the two were never romantically involved. This was not what Tyler wanted, however. When questioned by police, Tyler openly admitted a long-held crush on Anita. Tyler believed that he and Anita were best friends. He had even moved into the same apartment complex to be closer to her. Anita's family found Tyler's behavior after the murder.
So this is the love interest who lived at Anita's apartment complex. They went to high school together. She attended, I guess she was a date for her high school prom, but it was nothing more than just, a friendly basis type thing. But of course, he wanted more. He was in love with her. I kind of find it weird that he would even move to the same apartment complex that she lives in and live next, not to, I think, like the building over next to her. But they were also texting that same morning when she was unalive. So they considered him to be a suspect as well. So this will be suspect number 2, because first we have the maintenance man, who was 1. And then we also have Tyler, pretty much the love interest from high school.
Quite odd. He was spotted lingering outside the scene by police. He inquired directly with them regularly for updates. Tyler created a 20-minute tribute video in Anita's memory and posted it online. He set up a GoFundMe page, organized and contributed to other fundraising activities to pay for billboards to promote information gathering and to further support the investigation. Tyler was interviewed multiple times by law enforcement. His DNA and fingerprints were taken and compared to those at the scene. There was no match made to Tyler or to anyone else. Shortly after Anita was discovered, a witness told police that he viewed a man running from the crime scene area around the time that Anita was thought to have been killed. Police circulated a description of the individual and attempted to track the man down. A local man came forward right away, telling police that he jogged that route regularly at about that time in the early morning. After hearing this lead was set aside. A nearby building under construction had a crew working for weeks overlooking Anita's apartment complex. Every worker on the site took a DNA test, and roofers who had undertaken work at the complex were also eliminated, one by one. Meanwhile, those closest to Anita were interviewed, including her longtime friend and roommate, Nicole Thomas. The two had been friends since high school and had, at one time, been quite close. According to Nicole, this was still the case. She told police that she and Anita had the standard roommate disputes, but they really didn't argue. They were best friends. Others in Anita's social circle, however, painted a very different picture of her relationship with Nicole. According to friends, they argued frequently. Gordon Knutson even reported installing a lock on Anita's bedroom door only a month before she was killed because his daughter was worried about her safety at home. It was widely believed that Nicole was jealous of the attention that Anita received, not only from mutual friends.
Okay, so here we have a story painted by Nicole, who is the roommate, that they're quote unquote best friends and they were inseparable. But there's other friends and part of their circle that can attest to that's a lie. She was she was jealous of her, I believe, since high school. The living arrangement also kind of, I think, further escalated things when they were not getting along living together. You're going to hear some of the reasons why she actually did the thing that she did, or did what she did. And you're just going to be like baffled as far as the reasons why when we get towards the middle of the video. But yes, that's the other suspect, Nicole, who recently had a trial earlier this year, because she was arrested, I believe, back in 2022, 2023, one of those two. And her case just now went to trial recently. Of course, I feel like the jury got it wrong. It was a not guilty. But I'm going to continue playing this so you're going to further know exactly what happened between these two.
But from potential love interests. Conversely, Anita disliked that Nicole frequently invited men over to the apartment, often leaving while the men were still there. According to Anita, the roommates had arguments that sometimes escalated to screaming matches. Text messages from Nicole to Anita also suggested that Nicole was misrepresenting their relationship. In one message, Nicole wrote, "Seriously, what did I do to you? I ain't ever home. You pretty much have the effing place to yourself, for Christ's sake." This angry message, like many others from Nicole, were discovered on Anita's phone, left unanswered. According to Minot Police, the initial investigation saw more than 40 people interviewed. There were multiple DNA samples obtained, from Anita's fingernails, from the window, and from the knife. These samples failed to return any matches at the time, but were retained for future comparison. The investigation did not return a prime suspect, but it did eliminate particular persons of interest. Tyler Schmaltz, for example, was discounted as a suspect. Aside from the general observation that his behavior was deemed weird and that his affection for Anita could have been interpreted as obsessive, there was nothing tangible connecting him to the crime. The murder did not appear to be one of passion. Furthermore, it seemed very likely that the murderer did not come through the window. Whoever it was had had access to a key for the apartment when they left at the very least, so they could lock the door when they exited. Tyler's desire to assist the investigation and find Anita's killer appeared genuine. He had no motive to hurt her. He gave interviews willingly to both the police and to the media in the years following Anita's death.
Dating?
No, not dating. I just had a crush on her. We're just friends.
Oh, so you had a crush on her?
Yes.
Was it reciprocal?
Yes.
She had a crush on you
No,
back?
no, it wasn't. No, sorry.
So it wasn't reciprocated?
Marty Annell, the maintenance worker, was also scrutinized closely following the murder. That is, until he was found dead in his apartment in January 2009. To the surprise of those close to him, Marty's death was ruled a suicide. Speculation persisted for years that Marty had been involved in Anita's murder, and his unexpected death only raised suspicions that he had been unable to live with the guilt. But investigators were never able to make a connection to Marty, who had cooperated fully, including offering the slash scream, agreeing to answer questions, and giving DNA for testing. The Anita
And that was the maintenance man who was ruled as a suspect. They considered his suicide to be a sign of guilt. That's who they're referring to, was the maintenance man.
Knutson case remained open with no notable progress for almost 15 years. It was not only Tyler that was pushing for answers. The Knutson family gave interviews and pleas for information, any small piece that could help connect the puzzle. In a devastating development, Anita's brother Daniel, with whom she had been extremely close, took his own life in April 2013. The family believes that it was the grief over Anita that led to his depression. Anna, the youngest of the siblings, has stated that their sister's death was particularly devastating for her brother, and the incident had forever changed him. To the Knutson family, 2 of their children were lost when Anita was killed. In autumn of 2021, fresh life was breathed into the investigation when the American crime show Cold Justice took on Anita's case and sought to solve the mystery surrounding her murder. Cold Justice is a program that re-examines cold cases with the assistance of the show's own funding and resources. And as such, they have had a successful track record of leading law enforcement to arrests. Such was the case when the program descended on Minot, North Dakota, and began hunting down individuals who had known Anita Knutson. The program identified 4 key suspects: Tyler Schmaltz, whom they questioned yet again and was rapidly dismissed as a suspect; Michael Money Van, the wannabe boyfriend, who was the last person to text with Anita; Marty Annell, the unfortunate maintenance worker; and Nicole Thomas, who had in the subsequent years become Nicole Rice. The show's investigative team, which included Minot police detective McKaylee Talbot, found no evidence indicating animosity between Anita and Michael Van. He was eliminated by their assessment. They also determined that Marty's claim to have been unable to view Anita from the exterior of the building through the window when he collected the broken screen was likely legitimate. Police reports indicated that the lights had been turned off inside the bedroom when they arrived. With the sun down at the time of day that Marty was outside the window, he would not have been able to see clearly into the room as Gordon Knutson had done the following day. This left one clear suspect, Nicole Rice. Nicole was arrested at Minot Air Force Base, where she worked in a civilian capacity.
All right, so they ruled out 2 of the suspects they pretty much could not find them linked to Nicole at all. But one person who did was the roommate. Of course, she had a key, so she should have been questioned just like the others was.
In 2021, she was charged with the murder of Anita Knutson.
Now, after nearly 15 years of investigating and following up on leads, and the suspect is in custody. At about 3:25 p.m., 34-year-old Nicole Rice was arrested for murder and taken to Ward County Jail. Although most of the detectives who worked the original scene and investigation have retired, we have not forgotten about this case. Detective Carmen Asham and McKaylee Talbot were assigned to take over as the lead investigators. We tried to actively investigate Anita's case for the past few years, and finally, with the help of justice, we were able to move forward and refocus. Due to the resources, logistics, planning, and experts they were able to provide, we were able to obtain support for Nicole Rice.
Nicole was released on a cash bond of $125,000 pending trial. Her husband stood by her as she pushed for the charges to be dismissed. The state presented their case for probable cause.
The state of North Dakota versus Nicole Erin Rice. Ms. Rice is charged with murder.
Again, the charge is murder, class AA felony. How do you plead, man? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
Court will accept your plea of not guilty at this time.
It had been clear since the early days of the investigation that Nicole was the only person in Anita's life that had any disputes with her. Text messages between the two showed a growing escalation and desire from both sides to part ways should they be able to get out of their apartment lease. Mutual friends said that despite being very close when they were younger, the pair's relationship had grown toxic since they moved in together. Those interviewed recalled conflicts over an alarm clock and a fish tank, as well as Nicole calling Anita derogatory names to others. For years, Nicole had avoided a
Okay, so you just heard 2 reasons why what caused the conflict to escalate. One of them was the alarm clock kept going off. Nicole felt as though Anita's alarm clock was too loud, that it was waking up everyone, well, both of them that was in that apartment. And the other was an incident where Nicole had owned a fish tank. And I believe, I'm not sure whether it was making too much noise or it was causing too much backlight, but one weekend, Anita had unplugged the fish tank and forgotten about it. And when Nicole got back and she was gone for the weekend when it happened, all her fish were dead. So I think that's what really ticked her off and would cause the fuse to escalate that further, was because over a damn alarm clock and a fish tank. That's crazy to me, but let me just finish it.
arrest largely due to her alibi. Nicole's parents placed her with them all weekend at their family farm, from June 2nd through to the 4th, directly overlapping with the presumed time of death. The only problem was that a witness reported that she saw Nicole at a bar roughly 45 minutes from Minot on June 2nd, 2007. and that Nicole told her she went back to her apartment after to get some clothes. At a pretrial hearing in late 2022, Detective Talbot recounted a number of statements made by people who knew both Nicole and Anita at the time. Detective Talbot testified to the inconsistencies in her statements and alibi, which led in part to the re-examination of her as a suspect.
Over the investigation, Nicole's statements have been inconsistent from the start. They've changed drastically from not seeing Anita to seeing Anita to not being in Minot at all over the weekend to now coming back to Minot on Saturday night after she left the bar.
Perhaps amongst the most damning revelations from the years following came from an ex-boyfriend of Nicole's. After becoming what was described as belligerently drunk at a party, Nicole had been hounded by various party guests about the murder. Angrily and sarcastically, she was rumored to have proclaimed her guilt to everyone in earshot.
Submitted back in 2008 or 9 regarding a statement made at the party where Nicole had actually confessed to the murder. It was unknown to law enforcement at the time, or to me, I guess, who that was until 2022, where.
All right, so what she's talking about is pretty much is that she works for the law enforcement, Minot law enforcement department. Nicole's story kept changing pretty much as far as her whereabouts and her alibi, what happened to Anita the weekend that she was found unalive. One minute she was visiting her parents on a farm, to she was with her auntie and uncle, and then it switched to she was at the club, she was at a bar, so it didn't happen, and then she went somewhere else. So it was pretty much her story kept flip-flopping up and down, and she couldn't control which story to tell, because she pretty much was the defend not the suspect, but she was the murderer pretty much. She was just trying to get her story straight. And then also what she's saying is that
has been identified as the individual who provided that tip.
Back at home, her then boyfriend told police that she legitimately confessed. She did it, she said to him. Subsequent.
Right, that's what I thought. She had went to a party and got drunk with some friends, and pretty much just confessed out in the open, like, hey, yeah, because they were pretty much kind of her friends that were at the party were questioning her what had happened during the incident. Of course, she got too drunk and she started to spill a lot of information saying, yeah, I did it, and things like that. And I believe her ex-boyfriend was one of the persons that attended the party that actually heard what she said, and he took that seriously.
Attempts to have her repeat the statement while sober, however, failed.
He had an extreme hatred towards her. She was trying to move out of the apartment. I believe that it was a staged crime scene. She has means, motive, and opportunity at that time.
The state's case also relies on a DNA sample collected from the pocket knife. The sample was too small to be tested against the law enforcement database, but could be analyzed with other samples side by side. The sample was tested against a number of persons of interest, but Nicole was the only individual who could not be excluded by investigators.
And any of those samples that were sent for comparison, were any of them included, excluded, incapable of being excluded?
All of the male profiles that were sent have been able to be excluded from the profiles developed from the knife. The only profile that cannot be excluded or DNA sample that has been submitted is Nicole's.
The judge determined that there was sufficient evidence against Nicole to proceed with the charges. The state had not published the discovery of any new evidence since the arrest.
So she just testified that the only DNA sample that could not be excluded from all the suspects was the actual roommate, meaning that the two guys that they questioned, they could not include them, but Nicole, pretty much her DNA was there.
They had claimed only that a reassessment of the existing case was strong enough to move forward. When the case reaches trial, probably in mid to late 2023, Nicole's defense attorney, Philip Becker, is likely to point the finger at yet another new suspect, a man named Devin Hall, who had been arrested for breaking into homes armed with a knife in the days after the murder. Minot police arresting officer at the time wrote in his report that Devin Hall had said, "I've been in a lot of houses here." Attorney Becker also pointed to the statement from the witness who had reported seeing the man running from the area around the time of the murder. The description of this man, the defense claimed, matches that of Devin Hall. The defense is also supported by a number of reports from prior investigators and even analysts from the FBI who theorized that Devin Hall was the most likely suspect to have broken in and killed Anita.
Are you aware that the FBI profilers, after having been provided the entire file up until 2009 when this meeting happened, that was the conclusion they drew, that Devin Hall was the most likely suspect? And
I don't know.
I don't even see anything, any even reference to Nicole as far as the FBI profilers are concerned. Would that be fair to say?
I mean, per this paragraph, there's nothing referencing Nicole.
Investigators ruled Devin out as a suspect after acquiring video footage of him arriving in Minot at the train station the evening after the murder. He was not in Minot when they believed the murder occurred, hence when the runner was seen leaving the scene. It is likely that the defense will also seek to poke holes in this timeline and the state's determination of the time of death. Prosecutors believe she died in the early morning of June 3rd, shortly after sending her final text messages. If the burglar, Devin Hall, was the killer, then Anita must have died much later, after he arrived by train on the evening of June 3rd. With what has been revealed so far from this extensive investigation, the case against Nicole Rice is not overwhelming, and there are no shortage of others who the defense could point towards. It will be interesting to see if the case against Nicole Rice can withstand the threshold of reasonable doubt. By the publication of this video, no formal trial dates have been set. Nicole Rice faces the possibility of life in prison without parole if she's convicted of the murder. And that was the story of the 15-year-long investigation into the murder of Anita Knutson. Thanks for watching. I'm Kevin. This is Just Thought Lounge, and I'll see you in the next one.
All right, so that's the end of that video. I've actually watched the trial earlier, and like I said, I felt like it was a grave injustice that was done during her trial because a lot of evidence voted towards Nicole being the primary suspect, as she was. She had means, motive, and opportunity to do what she did, and that's more than enough to vote someone guilty in the court of law. I'll also be, like I said, I'll be doing the retrial all this week, playing videos, playing testimony from witnesses who testified during the trial each day. The next video that I'm going to do is going to be the opening statements. And then after that, we'll get into the testimony from her parents, both her mother and father, on the following day. But that's all I got for you guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. Have a good one.